and welcome to our special show, Living Long and Healthy with COVID Vaccination. I'm Gargi Rawat. Now, this is a unique initiative which seeks to address any concerns that you may have with regards to the COVID vaccination and living in this new normal. The risk of COVID infections continues even as restrictions have reduced, and now the numbers have been climbing up once again. In fact, many believe we're on the brink of another surge, and that vaccinations is the only way that we can counter this pandemic, the only way we can get ahead of the infections. Well, today we have with us experts who will address any concerns that you may have about the vaccinations. Joining us on the show, we have Dr. Dayanand K. Kumbla, interventional cardiologist at Jupiter Hospital and Jay Anand Hospital, Thane. Dr. Arijit Ghosh, consultant cardiologist at the AMRI Hospital, Kolkata, and Dr. Amitabh Sur, consultant endocrinologist and diabetologist at the Peerless Hospital, Kolkata. Thank you so much, doctors, for taking time out and joining us and, being a part of this effort to, relieve any concerns that people may have regarding the vaccinations. I'd like to start with you, Dr. Dayanand Kumbla. Can anyone experience lingering COVID symptoms?
Yeah. See, COVID syndrome basically started somewhere in December 2019. Its first case was discovered somewhere in China. And after that, the whole world was taken over by this COVID. In the last 15 months, I think all the nations have suffered from COVID. So the lingering symptoms would be in pre-COVID stage or the initial period of time, patients may complain of malaise, fever, fatigability, and lack of sleep, lack of appetite, and even lack of smell, which we commonly see. And when the patient suffers from COVID, this is the time when he starts getting fever, breathlessness, cough. And once he starts getting fever, breathlessness, cough, one has to go on to the pulse oximeter and find out what is the oxygen saturation. If the oxygen saturation goes on dropping, this is the time when the patient is admitted immediately to the hospital, and a battery of tests are conducted, like RT-PCR is definitely done. Then you have this D-dimer, then you do LDH levels, CRP levels, then you even do all these IL-6 and ferritin levels to see if patient has developed any cytokines, storm, and all these things. And he is immediately put on antibiotics and all particular medications. Even steroids are started, and many a time the remdesivir is started. Once he settles down, then we have post-discharge. Many of them do develop, at least 60 to 70% of the patients who have got comorbidities like hypertension, diabetes, obesity. These are the patients who will have lingering symptoms even after discharge. This may go on for a month or so. Many of them experience a lot of body aches and bone pains and all. Then even lack of sleep and hair falls are very common. Many of them experience palpitations. Their heart rates are really at a higher level. These patients may have some associated some type of myocarditis, something like that. So there are certain people who continue to have palpitation, and their heart rate, when you record, it may be anywhere between 100 and 120. And this also settles down once the COVID symptoms come back to normal. And after within 1 or 1.5 months, patient is back to work.
Right. It's important that people know more about these long COVID symptoms and the fact that they have to keep monitoring their health even after they test negative for coronavirus.
Correct.
Now, the other, issue of concern are the variants, and we've seen the kind of havoc they're wreaking in Brazil, in the UK, in the US as well. Dr. Arijit Ghosh, are the COVID variants more serious? We are finding some, some samples here in India as well, in Punjab, in Maharashtra. So tell us about the variants.
Okay, the thing is that what do we actually mean by a variant? Variant means that the change in genetic makeup of the virus, which is a very natural phenomena to happen. Even it happens with the common influenza virus also. And that is why we require fresh batches of vaccines every year. So this is also a truth with the coronavirus. As the virus replicates, it changes its genetic makeup. And we are living with this virus for the last 1 year. And millions of people have been affected across the globe. And what we have found that this virus has replicated quite usually for billions and trillions of times. So there has been some change in the genetic makeup, and these genetic changes usually causes change in the structure of the virus, especially the spike proteins. And most of the vaccines are targeted against this spike protein. So there is a definite concern whether the vaccines will be effective against these change strains also. The variants that usually has been located was first spotted from UK, South Africa, and from Brazil. The thing which is reassuring is this changed variety of viruses, they spread more rapidly and they can spread more fast. But the virulence of this virus has never been quite dangerous, and so the case fatality rate or the chances of people getting severe corona infection or deadly infections are not quite reported with this changed strains of the virus. And so the increase in hospitalization has never been an issue with this changed variants. But the thing is, these vaccines might be less effective with these changed variants of these viruses, but it is not the case that it won't be it won't be at all ineffective. So the vaccines are likely to work against these variants of COVID viruses even.
All right, so that's very interesting, and therefore there's a need to speed up the vaccinations. People must get vaccinated. That's the only way that, to get ahead of these variants, because the longer they're in our population, the more they'll mutate and we'll have more variants emerging. Now, Dr. Amitabh Sur, if we talk about people with diabetes, is the vaccine safe for people who are suffering from diabetes, especially for those who are currently not under good control?
Yes, contrary to some misconceptions or rumors which are going around, I want to clarify it categorically that all people who are living with diabetes, whether they are suffering from type 2, type 1 diabetes or any other type of diabetes, they can take the vaccine. The vaccine is completely safe in them, irrespective of their current glycemic control. While it is true that a good glycemic control is required to prevent severity of COVID-19 infection, but even for some or other reason, if the patient's glycemic control at present is not good, then also the vaccine can be administered safely to them. Secondly, many patients of diabetes are having complications because of diabetes, which can be heart problems like coronary artery disease, heart failure, kidney problems, retina related problems, nerve related problems. Many times we receive queries from these patients. They also should take the vaccines. The vaccine is safe in them irrespective of the complications through whichever complication they are having.
Now, Dr. Kumbla, many operations, were put off last year due to the pandemic. So should people undergo any pending angioplasties which were postponed due to the pandemic last year?
Yeah. See, the problem with coronavirus is that it affects the heart. So when it affects the heart, for many syndromes we have, like acute myocardial infarction, acute left ventricular failure, and even a lot of malignant arrhythmias are noticed in these particular patients. And when you come to acute myocardial infarction, it is because of the thrombotic stage where you have coagulopathies in this particular patient. Similarly, you have thrombus in the pulmonary circulation giving rise to pulmonary embolism. So also in coronary arteries also you have this thrombus going in and causing acute myocardial infarction. If a person is tested positive, even if he is stable, then it is better to thrombolize these patients, and then we can wait and see whether how hemodynamically stable. You can monitor his pulse, BP every now and then, get his total echo done and see what is his LV function, if it is deteriorating or not, and see his oxygen saturation and heart rate. If he is stable, then we generally after thrombolysis we may postpone for a few days before we do any intervention. Or at the same time, if you have a patient who is hemodynamically unstable, like his BP is dropping, he's continuously getting breathless and all, and you know that these are the patients whom if you intervene, it will definitely benefit. If you open these clogged arteries, then put a stent, he'll be better off. Now, there's a danger of this particular scenario. In patients with COVID-19 patients, many a times when you take inside the cath lab, you have to see that all the people working in the cath lab should be having the PPE kits properly worn and see that you don't cross-infect. And so that precaution has to be taken.
All right. Well, the other issue is, since the COVID vaccination is open to people over 60 years of age and those over 45 years of age with serious illnesses, many of these people are on blood thinners. So, Dr. Ghosh, one of the questions that we get a lot is whether people on blood thinners can go ahead and get the vaccine or any special care needs to be taken.
Yeah, we get calls as an interventional cardiologist quite often that my mother has gone an angioplasty, whether she will be able to take the virus or not, vaccine or not. The thing is that there are two types of blood thinners. One is antiplatelets, which are usually prescribed after an angioplasty, and the other is anticoagulants. That is, they are prescribed in patients who are having an irregularity in heart rhythm, commonly atrial fibrillation. So these are the group of people who are living with more and more comorbidities. That is, they are often having diabetes, hypertension, chronic kidney disease along with their cardiac ailment. So if you go by the common notion, these are the group of people who are to be protected from a corona infection. And that is why, quite logically, these are the group of people who are to be vaccinated. And so far as blood thinner administration or concomitant anticoagulation is concerned, it is never a contraindication or never a reason to be deterrent for a patient not getting this benefit of a corona vaccine. The other thing is that corona vaccine is usually administered intramuscularly. So there is a chance of some superficial intramuscular hematoma, but this can be taken care if the site of injection is pressed firmly for a period of 3 to 5 minutes, and this will help us in mitigating the problem of this intramuscular hematoma. So other than this intramuscular hematoma, we don't find much reason not to give vaccination to this group of people who are on blood thinners in the form of an antiplatelet or an anticoagulant, and they can be safely administered with the vaccine.
All right, well, I hope that's helped clear doubts among our viewers, and we'll slip into a short break and come back and address more of your concerns regarding the vaccination. Welcome back to our special show, Living Long and Healthy with COVID Vaccinations, and answering all your concerns and questions about vaccinations. Dr. Amitabh Sur, can people on thyroid medications go ahead and get the vaccination?
Yes, again a categorical reply. Anyone on any thyroid medication, both for hypothyroidism as well as for hyperthyroidism, can get vaccinated safely. Vaccine has got no relation with it. Even for those who are on thyroid medication or having thyroid illness and their thyroid status is not under good control for some or other reason, they should also get vaccinated, and of course that's a separate issue that they should get their thyroid problem corrected also.
Dr. Ghosh, in fact, and Dr. Kumla, coming back to you, if we can talk again about the long COVID problem that many people face, what is the post-recovery treatment for COVID patients currently in India?
Yeah, once you are done with the coronavirus infection, then you are discharged. So in patients who have got very mild infection, maybe after 10 days of the symptom-free, he is discharged. And at the same time, he should be free of fever for the last 3 days, then only he is discharged. And here you don't have to do RT-PCR before discharge. Then there is another variety where patients may continue to have little oxygen saturation may be low, so they may require little oxygen for a longer time. Their fever may come under control. Even these patients, after 10 days when they are symptom-free and their fevers are not there and their oxygen saturation are well maintained, they can be discharged, and then they have a home quarantine. At the same time, there's one group which suffers from very severe COVID infection. Here the lungs are very bad. So these are the patients who are on ventilators and they are put on tracheostomies and all those things, and they have a long duration of stay in the hospital. Here it is very difficult for them to wean off and come out very fast. So one has to be very particular in these patients. When they recover, you see to it that their oxygen saturations are well maintained. Even if the oxygen saturations are less, then you should have some home oxygen monitoring system as well as home delivery of oxygen at their places, maybe having an oxygen concentrator to give them oxygen now and then whenever they require. So these are the patients where before discharge one has to see that their RT-PCR is done.
All right. Now, Dr. Ghosh, another question that we get very often is about whether people who have pacemakers, if they can go ahead and get vaccinated.
Pacemakers are basically electronic devices which keeps the heart rate stable so that the heart rate does not go precipitously low and the patient does not suffer from any loss of consciousness. So these are very simple devices to play with, and basically it is a fit and forget device, not having much interaction with the other medical comorbidities of a patient. The thing is that pacemaker implantation is in no way a contraindication for a COVID vaccination. So any person who has been implanted with a pacemaker can jolly well go for a COVID vaccination, and he should not be denied the benefit of this.
All right, Dr. Amitabh, sir, women who are suffering from gestational diabetes, are they more prone to develop the COVID infection?
No, technically speaking, pregnant women who are suffering from gestational diabetes are not at increased risk of COVID-19 infection compared to the general population as such. However, it is also true that if they get COVID-19 infection because of their diabetes status, they are more likely to develop moderate or severe infection. They are also more likely to develop to get hospital admissions for that.
All right, and Dr. Kumla, finally, many people wonder about the vaccines. It's been a race to develop them in this last year. You have new technology also being used this time. So just tell us, how does the COVID vaccine work?
Yeah, well, one which is available nowadays is a Covishield or Covaxin. It's a particular virus which is there inside, and it is from the chimpanzee when they collect, and it is deactivated, and then it attaches to the spike protein, and that's how it helps in developing antigen antibody in this particular patient. Covaxin is also a similar type of one, which is again used in patients who have as a vaccination. And the duration, that how frequently you have to give. Covaxin and COVID is generally twice you have to give. Nowadays, initially we took this vaccine in 1 month apart, but nowadays it has come up that it's better to give after 8 weeks or 12 weeks the second dose. And the RNA Moderna vaccine from Pfizer, which is not in India at the moment, and which requires minus 70 degrees storage. So I think it will be difficult for an Indian population.
Right.
J&J has come with a vaccine where they said that one dose is enough. You need not give repeated doses in this particular group of patients. These are the nasal vaccine is also on the way. So when it comes, I think it will be more easier without any prick. So there will be no question about antiplatelet agents and blood thinners, which patients keep on asking us.
Right. Hopefully, soon we'll have more vaccines in our kitty. There's a Russian vaccine as well, Sputnik V, that everyone's talking about. Doctor, sir, finally, once you are vaccinated, is it finally safe to visit your doctor or go to a clinic?
COVID has to be taken now as part of life, and COVID discipline, as Dr. Ghosh has nicely mentioned, has to be maintained even after vaccination. So yes, you can safely visit your doctor's clinic. That's not a problem. But whether you visit your doctor's clinic or you go to a mall or cinema hall or whatever, you have to maintain the COVID discipline of mask and social distancing.
All right. Well, thank you so much, doctors, for joining us on the show today and taking time out and speaking to us. Do remember, if you're eligible to get the vaccine, do go ahead and get it, because that's the only way that we can get ahead of this pandemic. Thanks so much for watching. Goodbye.